All right, guys, welcome back to the Hot Heel Girl podcast. Today we are talking to Mimi from the Medicin. If you follow either of us, I'm sure you probably also follow her. But if you don't, definitely go check her out. We'll leave her stuff in the show notes. But she is one of our bucket list guests, at least mine anyway. So we are super excited to have her on today, talk all things mushrooms, king coffee, AHCC, and everything else in between. So welcome to the show, Mimi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
We're excited.
We're grateful to have a fellow mushroom aficionado because you dive way deeper than we have. And we touched upon it. We had a whole king reishi episode, and people are like, wait, go deeper. And I'm like, okay, we got to.
No, I love it. Mushrooms is one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm definitely not like I don't claim to be an expert by any means. People kind of attribute that to me, and that's fine. But I'm just like a student and I just love it. I think that they're fascinating. And so I'm just constantly trying to learn and will never not be fascinated and intrigued by this thing, this alien species almost that we call mushrooms. That's not a vegetable, it's not a plant, it's not quite an animal, it's something in between. And I'll never not be fascinated. So I just like to share my what I've come to know and understand, and hopefully it helps other people in some way. So that's my disclaimer. For the rest moving forward is most of this is me diving into books, listening to podcasts, talking to real experts and learning from them. So, not a mycologist by any means. I'm just passionate about them.
And that's what we love. Um, I want to ask how you got into loving mushrooms. Like what fully brought you to this place that you are today?
Yeah, it's in short, I'll give you the longer version, but in short, it was my own health hellhole, honestly. Which is, I think, it's a common thread in a lot of people's story, how they get into the thing that they're most passionate about, or one of the things that they're most passionate about is their own like shitstorm. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on
Yeah,
this.
no, we believe me.
Okay. The shitstorm that happens in life, in many people's maybe mid to late 20s, early 30s, the toxicity of our world, of our lifestyle catches up to us, and it causes us to stop and say, like, I don't think I can keep going like this. Like, I don't think that this is sustainable. And that was a very real part of my life in my late 20s. I'm 33 now. When I was 27, just turned 27, I divorced my childhood sweetheart, Chase. We had been together since we were 17 years old, and we were kind of not forced, but very highly encouraged to get married young, come from evangelical Christianity growing up. I don't identify as that now, but that was a big part of most of my life. And if you know anything about that culture, it pushes you into getting married very young. So that's what we did. And marriage is really hard. Life is really hard. Hashtag stress, hashtag student loans, hashtag no communication tools, no healthy communication tools. So, long story short, regarding my relationship, 3 years into marriage, I was 27 and told Chase that I didn't want to be with him anymore. And these are all the reasons why. And that was really the jumping off point to a lot of my health issues. It really was. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a major emotionally, mentally, spiritually stressful time for me. And I just buried that stress. I shoved emotions down. I didn't want to look at certain parts of myself. I didn't want to address. And I don't have to tell you guys, but when that happens, your your body doesn't forget that stress. It kind of just tucks it away, combined with a multitude of unhealthy orthorexic lifestyle factors. So I was I was like, okay, I'm 27 and divorced. I've never dated as an adult. Don't even know what that's like. In big city Seattle, finally like have my own money that I can spend on whatever I want with no one looking over my shoulder. And so I just kind of like lived that life. And part of it was searching for validation. Part of it was searching for someone to tell me that I'm beautiful, someone to desire me, which as a feminine being, that's a huge piece of relationship. That's a huge piece of us. Like, if you don't want to admit that, you're kind of fooling yourself. If you have a feminine essence to you, you're kind of fooling yourself if that is not in your purview at all. So I was, single and in the city, and you guys are getting the really long version.
No, we love this.
We love it.
So I was single in the city and looking for that validation. And so I leaned into like, I'm going to be dialed in on my nutrition and movement and working out. So I got really into getting as fit. I have air quotes there because I was fit but sick. And I was under eating, not on purpose, but just with how much I was working out. I didn't know I was under eating for 2 years straight. So I was in a constant caloric deficit. If you're a woman, that is really hard on your hormones. I had zero estrogen. My hair was falling out in chunks. I had cystic acne blowing up on my face. I had a rash on half my body that was completely unexplained by every doctor that I asked. I couldn't digest my food. It would come up like regurgitated with like acid, no stomach acid, but I had abs. But I looked great in a bikini. But I could get just about any man's attention. But I felt awful. I felt fucking awful. And it was like I had one moment where I was in the shower, huge chunk of my hair was like in my hand, and I was like, this is not normal. And I just crumpled. I just like fell apart on the shower floor. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to figure this out. And it's making me a little choked up here. I don't know why, but just that moment, remembering that moment of just being like, I feel completely alone. I don't know. And mind you, I was a health coach on the side, like being a dental hygienist, 40 hours a week. And then I was also a health coach helping people like lose weight. And I couldn't figure out my own shit. And it felt like I was living this double life. Like I didn't actually know what I was talking about. And so that was really hard. It was really hard emotionally, mentally, certainly physically. And I just felt very disconnected from myself. I didn't know what to do. So I was desperate at this point. I didn't want to share this with anyone because like then I'm a fraud. Then I don't know what I'm talking about. And so I just like, okay, I got to figure this out. And I just got this nudge that, okay, I probably should lay off exercise for a while. So I just walked and did yoga for 6 weeks. And part of this, I promise I'm going to answer your question. Part of this was me really leaning into health and wellness podcasts. Shout out to the Model Health Show. That was like a huge piece of me really trying to learn what real health was, what I could do to better my situation. And I just kept hearing about medicinal mushrooms over and over and over on ads, mostly from like Four Sigmatic, which I think where a lot of people start is I have huge props, major props to them. I don't use them anymore in my life, but in the beginning, they were huge at really getting mushrooms into the mainstream that like, hey, look at this, there's this other thing. And so I started, learning about them, hearing more about them, listening to podcasts, and then I started using them myself. I won't say that all my problems went away because I started using Four Sigmatic mushrooms, but it like flipped a switch in me that there was more to health than my body composition. And it's a slow progression over time, really like kind of plowing down the neural pathways, the grooved runs that get like, this is what's important to me over and over and over related to body image stuff. It takes a while. It's not a flip of a switch, but it just piqued my interest around this topic. And then being a dental hygienist in our office, one of the patients in our office got HPV, human papillomavirus, later in life. She was like in her 50s. And her daughter actually worked in our office. And she said, yeah, my mom's naturopath recommended a mushroom to help with her HPV. And I was like, whoa, I was learning about medicinal mushrooms. I was like, oh, is it chaga? Is it reishi? Is it what lion's mane? What is it? And she's like, it's AHCC. And I was like, what? I thought I was like, knew something about mushrooms. And I was like, that's not a mushroom. I've never heard of it. So immediately I go to Dr. Google, look it up, see that it is in fact a derivative of mushrooms, and that it has a whole research organization behind it, that it has glowing reviews on, other websites, that the anecdotes at least are like mind-blowing. Ordered AHCC, started taking it myself, and started learning about it. So I ordered the medical textbooks that were written about AHCC, and I just couldn't stop. I just started devouring information, and I was just like, what? How is this thing so powerful and so safe? Literally no negative side effects. And people, like, I've never heard of this. Doctors, like, don't seem to be using it the way that they should. Why is this not more of a thing? And so it just lit a fire under my ass. I was like, more people need to know about this. Mm-hmm. So I started sharing on Instagram. That grew into me getting recognized by the manufacturers of AHCC in Japan. They invited me to Japan to check out their whole system at the International Congress on Nutrition and Integrative Medicine. That was in 2019. And that really changed my entire life. I really saw the research and the I would say robustness of this thing that is AHCC, and how much potential it is there for, I won't use the word healing, but providing more intelligence, amplifying the existing intelligence of the body. And that's, from there, I was sold. I was like, I have to keep talking about this. Like, looking at the research, looking at everything, like, I can't not talk about this. I have a very strong guide archetype, advocate archetype in me innately, that if I know about something that could potentially help someone and I stay silent, like, it hurts me. So I just kept sharing on Instagram, and that eventually grew into a podcast. And that's where I'm at today. Now we have 2 mushroom products, seeing, kind of what's lacking in the industry and how people cut corners. And we decided that we weren't going to do that. And so that's kind of where I landed, in 2023. That's where I'm at.
And like, you were the first I'd heard of AHCC in like 2019 on like Christina Rice's podcast. I remember because Four Sigmatic's like the gateway mushroom. It really is. You're right. It gets everyone into it. Same. I used to use them and it was phenomenal. And then, we've come around to other things. But when I found your product, I you Google AHCC, you look up what's out there, how many other people carry it. And you're right. There's such a lack in the market. There's like only a few carriers, and only a few that like I would deem trustworthy, even upon just like a quick search. Right. Yeah. So you guys are just filling such a market for it, because all of the research is there for how phenomenal it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are definitely other carriers, but because it is a very expensive, very expensive product to just provide. It's because it's so unique. It's actually a unicorn in the mushroom space. And there's such a process to the overall manufacturing of it. And it is so helpful to the body. It has to be this expensive. Unfortunately, there's a lot that goes into it. But so I say that because a lot of products out there, quote unquote, AHCC products out there, have like a tiny sprinkling of the product in it. They may be 100 milligrams, which is probably not going to do anything for you. Like, one of our capsules is 750 milligrams. And so people kind of slap HCC on the label and call it good, but they're not actually providing something that's going to be helpful for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember for a while, right, like you guys were going in and out of having stock and not, because I was just trying to get my hands on it. I was like, oh my God, because there's, like you said, because you put so much of it into, and with all of the market demands, I was like, I can't get my hands on this stuff. What the
It was
heck?
really like I was in a I kind of hid it from the Instagram world, but in 2020 when the world blew up and
Yeah.
everyone was realizing that immune health is really important, and AHCC is the number one immune specialty immune supplement with over 30 human clinical trials behind it. We couldn't keep up with the demand. Like we literally didn't have enough bottles in our place to fulfill for people, and our manufacturers couldn't get us anymore. So I was dying. I was not dying. That's very like I'm exaggerating, but I was in sort of in a depressed state for a little bit, knowing that people who wanted this, and I wanted to help people with, their immune system, immune health, and I couldn't. It was hard. It was really hard for me.
Yeah, I was able to snag some in 2020. That's when I
you.
first tried it too. And I will say, when I got the sickness that shall not be named, high dosing AHCC, I think, was one of the main things that helped me just like kick it in 3 days.
Yeah, that was our experience too. Absolutely. We were taking like, I don't know, maybe like 6 grams a day, which is, that's a hefty dose, but you really can't take too much. So I was like, just like
Right.
mainlining it.
Yeah, that was me. I think like 6 capsules a day or something like that, on top of, my regular reishi and all the other stuff. But yeah, I credit that to, because everyone else that I knew was out for like 2 weeks, and I felt crappy for like a day and a half, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, the reason for that, the reason why people who use something like AHCC is because one of the main mechanisms of action is to increase the number and effectiveness of the specific immune cells that provide immune surveillance for your body. So there's certain white blood cells, NK cells, those are the natural killer cells. People have probably heard those in headlines. Natural killer cells, T cells, macrophages, these are really important for recognizing something like a virus or a mutated cell, like a cancer cell. So when you increase those specific cells by up to 300 to 800% in a matter of days or weeks, you're better off. Like your body literally has more quote unquote soldiers to recognize, hey, there's this thing we need to deal with. And then it also, what the other mechanism of action is, it increases it improves the communication between those cells. So not only do you have more, but the communication pathways are improved as well. And so it's really, really powerful, not just for the vid, not just for HPV, but it's really a human body supplement because, our immune system is really a part of almost every body process, right? So that's why it's effective for so many different diseases and conditions and things like that.
Yeah, I recommend it to so many of my clients, and they'll look at the price and they're like, oh, that's really expensive. And I'm like, no, but that is the one you get because it's worth it. Because like you said, all the other ones out there, you're just getting micro doses.
Yeah. And, because it's a private label, there are legal obligations for, we literally like legally can't sell it for cheaper because it's a private label, and just the way that the legality works, it's not like I'm trying to milk people for, like we don't actually make that much money on it. If I was a smart businesswoman, I would not provide AHCC as a product, honestly. So I wish I could just like put that on a billboard, because I'll get, it hasn't happened often, but it's happened a few times where people will accuse me of, because it is a more expensive product, again, legally it has to be for me, they'll kind of accuse me of like trying to milk people or whatever. And it's like, I just kind of have to laugh because it couldn't be further from the truth. I do this because it's a passion of mine, and I'm adamant about helping as many people as possible. And so I just kind of have to ignore those, but it's thankfully few and far between.
And people always say the same thing about spores from like organo and reishi. They'll be like, "Oh, the spores are so expensive." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's because they're harvested correctly because there's so much of it in there, right?" Like it's a very similar thing where I'm like, "You're paying for what you get. You're paying for
Yeah.
exactly what you get. It's worth every penny."
Yeah, and I would say, there's a reason why fast food is really cheap. There's a reason why a lot of supplements are really cheap. Now, some of that might be because there's so much of the raw material in abundance that they're like literally trying to just get it out. That could be something. Um, but And I'm not saying that just because a health supplement is expensive, that's the only indicator that you need for effectiveness. Like, no, absolutely not. But I can say that, some of the really cheap mushroom products on Amazon or on the internet, there was a 2017 study where they took 26, I think, different reishi mushroom products from the internet, and a very, very small percentage of them even contained reishi mushroom. So it was like 17% of them contained reishi mushroom. So I would just really be like, you can do whatever you want as a consumer. Like you have the freedom to do whatever you want, but you might be thinking that you're getting a really good deal on a mushroom product, but what you're actually getting is very expensive oats or rye or rice, with maybe a little bit of mushroom sprinkled in there. So that's the majority of mushroom products on the market, unfortunately. So just a word of caution to people out there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
try to remind everyone of that because everybody balks at the price or they'll tell me, I've tried reishi, I didn't feel a difference. And I'm like, okay, what brand did you try? Like, where are you getting it from?
Mhm.
Are you actually getting reishi in what you're taking? Because
Yeah.
that could be why you're not feeling a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of uh there's no other word but like fuckery. There's a lot of
That's a
fuckery
good
that
word for
goes
it.
on in and I didn't know this until I got into the mushroom space and became a provider of mushroom products and learned about the manufacturing process. But there's a lot that goes on that consumers don't see. And a good kind of at a quick glance, if your mushrooms are being grown in the US, like if your product says our mushrooms are proudly grown in the US, this is one case where local does not equal better.
Mhm.
I'm a big believer in buying local when it makes sense and when you can, of course. But mushrooms is not one of those things unless you're getting it from your neighbor who grows their own mushrooms and grinds them up and extracts them, and you know exactly what's going into the process. Like, cool, that's a case where it's working out in your favor. But if you're going to the internet and buying US grown mushroom extract products, you can bet that the majority of that final product is filler or oats, like I mentioned, rye, rice, because what they do is they grow the mushrooms on something like oats, rye, rice. When you're growing them in bulk, you have to do this. In the natural world, in the forest, they just grow on trees and logs, and that's great. When you're growing them for consumption to sell on the internet, you can't just go out and forage mushrooms. You have to create them in like a lab or in a, growing facility or something like that. So they're usually grown on oats or rye or rice. And because it's very expensive to grow mushrooms, what they do is they include the growing medium into the final end product. So that's why many products that say, like, for instance, reishi, you guys know this. Reishi is like almost black. It's dark, 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 dark brown. If you were to see it, just taken and without any extract or without any filler in there, it's very dark brown. Well, a lot of these companies, like Ohm is one, where their reishi product is white.
Mm-hmm.
What color is oats and rice and millet? It's like a creamish white, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's
I
what
mean,
you're
all of their products look the same color,
Yeah.
And it's like every single one of those mushrooms is not that color.
No, it's mushrooms come in a variety. Like cordyceps is light brown, tremella is white, reishi is dark brown, lion's mane is like a tannish kind of, like it's the spectrum, it's the rainbow. If all of the companies or brands products look like the same, you know exactly what you're getting, unfortunately.
Yep.
And you'll also notice with, like, whenever I take the capsules from Organo, like, they're all different colors, right? The different parts of the mushroom are different colors as well. Like, you can see them. It's clear. The mycelium's different from the spores, different from like the fruiting body. It's just very much not standard, as it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll
that's
hear that. Yeah, I'll hear that when people are drinking like their king coffee or something. They're like, there's sediment in the bottom of my cup. It's like, is that something wrong with it? And I'm like, no, that's the spores. Like, you're getting quality. Just swirl it around
I know.
and drink it.
It's a really easy fix. Like when I'll get those DMs too, and they'll be like, it's gathering at the bottom. I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's a really easy fix. Like, do this.
A little swirl and
Give it a little swirl and you're gonna be good.
Yep.
You're like, drink it. It's good for you.
That's what you're paying for. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about mushy love for a second.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah. Because that's your latest and greatest product. I haven't tried it yet. It is on my list. I need to try it. But every time you describe it, you're like, it's like a cinnamon swirl latte in a mug. And I'm like, that is like the words for my soul, because I love anything cinnamon. So
Yes. Yeah. So a couple years ago, were really, like I've already kind of mentioned, kind of discouraged and disappointed in some of the products that were being offered, on Instagram and the web and coming up. Like mushrooms have become more of like a fad thing, and people are turning on to the amazingness of mushrooms, which is great. But that also means that the market sees that, and they, are sprouting up, pun intended, sprouting up these new mushroom brands and companies that don't actually have any growing experience, unfortunately. And so they go with the route that I just explained to you guys. So a lot of the products that are made in the US are full of fillers and don't even have a substantial amount of mushrooms in them. And so that's, why leading up to us making our own product, we didn't really recommend a lot of products. Real Mushrooms is the only brand that I could really stand behind and put my stamp of approval and seal of, like, I believe in this product. I've seen how I trust the growers. They have 46 years of experience. And so that was really the only brand that I could really like get behind. So we were kind of just in the state of disappointment, and people would send me pictures of other mushroom products, and I would have to be the bearer of bad news. Like, this is not good. You can buy it if you want, but I personally wouldn't drink this or take it or recommend it to anyone that I love. And so we got to this point where we're like, we want to make our own. And it was a long process. It took us about a year and a half to get it to the point where it was like ready to sell. But we basically started with the question of, okay, how do we get the most possible mushrooms? Because there's a lot of mushroom products out there. How are we going to differentiate? and how do we provide the most pure mushrooms, organic mushrooms possible in one scoop and make it taste good. Because anyone who has dealt with mushrooms as a raw material knows that it's a very difficult product material to work with because some of them taste like fish, some of them taste like dirt, some of them taste like just so bitter, like reishi, like is so bitter that
Mm-hmm.
you have to have kind of an iron gut to get it down, in certain cases. And so it's not an easy thing to work with. So that's one reason why it took us quite a while, because we were literally in our kitchen buying the raw materials and just like mixing up different iterations of, like, we knew what we kind of wanted it to taste like. We knew we wanted it to be like a golden graham, cinnamon roll, vanilla, caramely type experience. And so the other thing that we wanted to make sure from the beginning was that there wasn't any like natural flavors or any weird sweeteners. Like, I don't have any hate for monk fruit. It's in a lot of products that I love, but it's been used for like relatively short amount of time by people, and some people get some gut distress from things like erythritol, monk fruit, stevia. So we wanted to just leave those out and just stick with what comes from, nature. So it's sweetened with a little bit of organic raw maple sugar and a really clean, simple ingredient list. But choosing the right ingredients was important to get the flavor profile that we wanted that wasn't a mile long. So we ended up with a product. It's called Mushy Love Latte, and the flavor is cinnamon swirl. And I like to say, yeah, if you mix it with steamed milk, it tastes like a liquid cinnamon roll. If you mix it with cold milk, like I drink raw cow's milk, when I drink it there cold, it tastes like liquid graham crackers. And so it's weird how it like changes based on that, but you can also use it like mixed with king coffee or whatever coffee you drink, or it's also really good dumping a scoop into a vanilla protein shake. It's like a snickerdoodle. And so with this formulation, the 2-star ingredients are chaga and tremella mushroom, and we put 500 milligrams each. So in each scoop, you're getting a full gram of medicinal mushrooms, organic, pure medicinal mushrooms with no fillers. It's just straight fruiting body extract. And that's unheard of for a mushroom product. One, for it to have no filler, and then two, for it to be that many like milligrams. Most mushroom products out there, if they are pure medicinal mushrooms, are going to be maybe 250, 300 milligrams. So in each scoop, there's about 3 to 5 times more medicinal mushrooms. And these mushrooms are really powerful. Chaga is arguably the most potent antioxidant in the world. It's really great for hair health, for nail health, for happy gut. It's really amazing for the immune system. It does a lot in the body. It's nicknamed the king of mushrooms for a reason. And then tremella is the other one that is nicknamed the beauty mushroom. And she's not talked about enough. I don't know why more companies haven't picked up in our world that is like phobic to aging. I don't know how more companies haven't, like, oh my gosh, tremella is amazing. I don't know how they haven't picked up on it, but I'm glad because it differentiates our product. But tremella mushroom is amazing because it holds 500 times its weight in water. A healthy cell is a hydrated cell. Our body is what? It's arguably 90% or more water, and our cells need to be hydrated to function properly. So tremella mushroom really locks in moisture into your cells. So what people see externally is they could heal infection faster because cells are working better. And you're also like it's called the beauty mushroom because back in the 8th dynasty, I want to say, ancient Chinese, there was a woman, an empress basically, who was known for her beauty, and she was nicknamed one of the 4 great beauties in Chinese history. And she accredited her beauty to tremella mushroom, taking tremella mushroom every day. So what we see is healthier, hydrated, plumper skin, younger looking skin. And both of the mushrooms have amazing clinical research behind them as well. But aside from chaga and tremella, we also used lucuma powder, elm bark powder, cinnamon, obviously, and then maple sugar, like I said, coconut milk powder, and a little sea salt, and that's it.
All right, I'm about to go order some
I
as
know,
soon
I
as we're
was
done with
thinking
this
that. I'm like,
podcast.
We'll send you guys both a bag, so don't worry about it.
Well, I
we're
mean,
happy to
yeah,
support
we're
either way. I
happy
was
to
like,
order it.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm going.
I'll get you guys squared away. I'll get you taken care of.
All right. Then we can rave about it to
Yeah.
everyone. So
Oh my
we can
gosh.
get our order in before everyone hears this podcast and is like, oh, we need
Yeah.
some of that.
And I will say, feedback that we hear a lot is, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you didn't make this super sweet. Probably 75% of people that give feedback say something like that. We purposefully did not make it super sweet. If you like your stuff sweeter, just add your own whatever, honey or maple, or if you like stevia, whatever. Just like fit it to your taste. Because we do hear that feedback sometimes where it's like, it's not really that sweet. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. We wanted it to be very versatile. And you guys probably know this, when something is super, super sweet, it cuts down on the versatility because you might be adding it to something like vanilla protein that's already sweet.
Mhm.
So then you mix it with other things and you're like, oh, this is like too much. This is too sweet. I can't use this very versatilely. So that was the point in making it not super super sweet.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I get things all the time, like mixes like that, and it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, it's too much. And I know Courtney feels the same way about something not being really sweet. So
yeah, I was like, even some Ollipops are too sweet for me. So like,
yeah. I know. It's like when you live a lifestyle that is oriented towards real food, towards whole food eating, then you get something that's probably like meant for the general consumer who might be more addicted to sugar. And these health companies are making products for the general consumer who does have that desensitized palate to sweetness. And it's like, then you and I have something like that. And it's like, oh, this is too much. Because for me, I'm like, give me a good cantaloupe and that's my dessert. Like, it sounds so lame, but or like a good dark chocolate is dessert. And I know we're weirdos for that, but I prefer it.
Yeah, we'll be in the grocery store and my husband will be like, you want to get some ice cream? And I'm like, I'd rather have a watermelon.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like during the holidays, my parents will try and like buy like gluten-free baked goods. And I'm like, can I just make it? Because like I wanted to and now I've desensitized them all to the point where they like my stuff better. I'm like, good. We're on the same page.
Love that.
But I feel like this is such a phenomenal product because like you said, you came from, I mean, a lot of us probably came from that world where we were trying to like diet and work out just to like form our body to something. And now you're making products that are helping people like embrace their own natural beauty instead of just trying to like push and form your body and into a box, right? Like loving and nourishing her in a way that she is able to do exactly what she needs to. And that's what I love about mushrooms. Cause I always tell everyone, I'm like, no, like they're adaptogens, right? They adapt to what your body needs. Like they tune into that innate ability of your body to heal. And we don't give ourselves enough credit all the time, right? Like the body knows how to heal. An autoimmune disease doesn't happen by chance. Your body doesn't just start attacking itself because everything's fine.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts, but I want to back up to the point you made, which is great. I feel like it's so rare, at least for me. I'm down in Southern California. I'm in San Diego, and you see it all down here. It's a walking billboard for the newest surgical technology everywhere. And whatever, people can do whatever they want to do. You can get Botox, get lip filler, get all the fake stuff if that's what you think will make you happy. I'm in no position to tell anybody what they should or should not do. What I notice though in my own observation is when I see a woman, maybe in her 50s or 60s, that is embracing her own like natural beauty. And I'm not saying like natural, like, oh, never wear makeup. Like I wear makeup every single day, just about. But what I mean is like taking care of your body and providing it the necessary tools, good food, whole, organic foods, clean mineralized water, sunlight every day, gentle but effective movement, breathing properly, healthy relationships. Like, I feel like those are such rarities that when you see someone who, like, I can tell, or I'll, talk to women that I see like this, and they have a healthy lifestyle, they take care of their body, and they embrace the shape and the look that their body takes while giving everything that they can as far as like healthy tools to their body, like something like Tremella. And I see these women and I'm just like, I think that they are so much more beautiful than someone who you can tell is just trying to put the e-brake on in their aging, to where it's not even like, it's like they're doing everything in their power to resist looking what their age could be, to the point where now they don't even look all the way like human. And I realize that that might be I don't know if that's inconsiderate of me to say, but this is just my own observation, where I see a woman and I'm like, she's clearly 55, 60 years old and she's trying to look 25. I'm like, huh. It's like shocking. And so all that to say, like, I want to be in a position where I'm giving my body the tools and the ability to age gracefully and not resist every sign of aging at all costs. And I think that that's important, just for your own like acceptance of self, and I'm getting a little esoteric here, I suppose, but like how much of that comes back to like worthiness and self-love and self-acceptance, our disdain for aging and the aging process and trying to work backwards at all costs. I think it does come back to, do I love myself? Do I love myself enough to provide the tools to age gracefully, rather than get to 60 years old and try to reverse, the clock? It's another case of like us as mankind thinking that we can outsmart Mother Nature, and it just doesn't work that way.
I think it's
Yeah.
something that also stems from like generationally too. Like our generation, our age group, I feel like is leaning much more into like what you just described, like just embracing your body. But like growing up, I feel like we would see our moms and our grandmas, like constantly have, and socially, just like in the 80s, in the 90s, it was all, like you must look like this, you have to age like this, you have to do this and this and this. And so you would always constantly be hearing like, we don't love ourselves, or we hate the way we look and we have to change because we can't look like this when we're old. Thankfully, I was never exposed to that, like from my mom or my grandma. But I know that was the case for a lot of people. And I think it's just a big like mindset and generational switch that we just have to flip. So I hoping that, like the generations that are coming now, like if we were to have kids, hopefully that mindset change would be a little different for them.
Yeah, well, kids are going to model what they see. They're either going to model what they see, or they're going to see something that they don't like and swing the entire other direction. And I think that there's a little bit of that going on where, like you mentioned, 80s, 90s, where you're taking like diet weight loss drugs from your doctor, and definitely diet culture really like sunk its claws into society.
Mhm.
And then as more and more people get unhealthy with unhealthy lifestyle behaviors, it swings the other way, I think. And maybe these are just the loudest people in society, but maybe it's a little skewed. And but what we're seeing now, instead of like going to the extreme of orthorexic tendencies and taking diet pills and diet culture, we're swinging the other way, where now literally, people will say any body size is healthy.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
although I'm not saying that, I want to be very clear that I think no matter what size you are, no matter what your health looks like, your health expression, what it's currently manifesting as, that you shouldn't love yourself. That I'm never saying that. That is not my goal. I think it does take love to step into a healthier lifestyle. And I don't want to make, you know, uh, the mistake of um, like buying into people's bullshit. Like
Yeah.
people are bullshitting themselves and calling
Mhm.
it truth, calling it reality, and it's not. There are healthier lifestyles than others. It's
Mhm.
just a fact. And I will like never not think that. So I think it takes an act of actually loving yourself to realize, like, hey, this is unkind to myself. Going to Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and Burger King 5 times a week is not actually loving to myself. It might be a great source of pleasure and dopamine, but I'm kidding myself. I'm bullshitting myself if I think that this is healthy. And doing those types of behaviors and those types of things will make me a healthy person. That's utter nonsense. And so I want to be very clear there. Like, I'm sort of in 2023 embracing more of, on our podcast and everything, like actually saying what I believe and not trying to please too many people.
Open
And
that throat chakra.
totally, and
Yeah, I'm
just
right
being
there
like,
with you on
I'm
that.
I'm done.
Mhm.
Fuck censorship. This is what reality is. And you can choose to like work with reality, or you can choose to work against reality, but you will be devitalized in the process of convincing yourself that your bullshit is true.
Mhm.
Mhm. I
Preach.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much.
No, and I was thinking that as you were talking, Em, because there is such a spectrum. Like there's a wide spectrum of people, right? There's people who were orthorexic. Me, when I was on Candida diets, right? I ate no sugar. I was afraid of bananas. I was working out like crazy. I was always stressed out, you know? And then there's people that do things because they love themselves. And like you said, it's not an act of love. It's an act of dopamine, but a lot of them will convince themselves otherwise. So but there's such a wide spectrum of people. And I just think as women, we have to just own up to what we believe. And that's okay if it's different than what other people believe, but like just love yourself enough to make the right decisions for you, whatever that may be.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I've this is something that I've really shifted my perception on since 2018 when I explained all of my health issues to you guys. Um, that was like, okay, body composition is it,
Mhm.
because I'm trying to seek validation from the external world. Well, it's actually not it. And if you make that your guiding light, it's a piece of the puzzle, and I say this all the time on the podcast. It's a piece of the health puzzle. Body composition is a tiny piece, but if you make that your guiding light, there are other aspects of your health that are going to get trashed, without
Mhm.
a doubt. And so what the kind of the approach that I take now, I still want to be fit. I'm not going to lie. I still want to be confident and look good in a bikini. Do I need to have abs? No, but I do still pay attention to like, where is my body at? Am I gaining weight? Am I losing weight? Am I maintaining? I don't judge it, but I still pay attention to it. But now I lean into the healthy aspects of lifestyle, everything that I just listed out: eating, moving, drinking water, sunlight, breathing effectively, and having, healthy thoughts and healthy relationships. When I'm doing those things, the shape that my body takes is the shape that she wants to take to express health. So I'm not trying to retroactively fit my body composition into whatever Instagram or society deems as quote unquote beautiful. Because back in the 1800s, it was some fluff. They wanted some fluff on women to show that they were high society, that they were high class, right? In the 80s, it was sticks, it was twiggy, it was straight athletic bodies. In the 90s and 2000s, it was the Victoria's Secret models, long legs, big boobs, and, wings or whatever. And now it's more of the whatever Kim K body, which is driving more people to get implants and get BBLs and all of this sort of thing. So it's like we're kidding ourselves if we don't think that society is trying to dictate. I mean, like women's bodies, like what's beautiful in society and culture is completely a style. It's a fashion trend.
Mm-hmm.
So if you try to fit your body every 5 or 10 years when it changes to what's beautiful to the external world, you're probably going to have some health issues versus listening to your body's communication, forming a relationship with your own intuition, doing things from a healthy, balanced standpoint, not too much, not too little, the Tao Te Ching. Like, if you stay balanced in those things, I think whatever shape your body takes is what it's meant to take. So that's what I try to live by now.
Yeah. 100%. Because I know both of us love to like weight lift and stuff like that. So we always say that too. Because I'm like, my body is naturally going to sit a little bit bigger than most people. I'm 5'8". I'm like 150. And people hear that number. A lot of my clients get triggered. They're like, you weigh 150 pounds. And I'm like, yeah. And I also squat my body weight and more. Like, we're great. We're beautiful. We're strong. And it's so interesting where your body naturally wants to sit when you let it, when you eat to satiety, when you eat real foods, work out, do all of that stuff. Like, yeah, I could try and squeeze myself back into that 125 that I was when I was 17 years old. But, it's not going to be very comfortable because that was the last time I sat there comfortably because I was going through puberty still.
Yeah. I totally wholeheartedly agree with you. If you lift heavy, if you squat, if you're deadlifting, if you like engaging in that type of exercise, muscle is more dense than body fat. And so it's like, I'm right there with you. Like I'm 5'4" and 140. And
Heck yeah.
You look at someone else who might be 140 has a different muscle to fat composition and their body's going to look completely different. I haven't owned a scale in 5 years or so, more than that, because this is such a cliche, but it's so true. Like the scale is just a number, and how you feel, how are you digesting? How's your libido? Are you able to poop every day? Are you sleeping well? Are you passing parasites when you need to? Like, there's so many other measures of health that unfortunately are not taught to us. And so it's on us to really take ownership of our health as an adult, not as a child looking for someone to guide us and tell us what to do. The power structures, the government, authority, a health coach, even. It really takes us like owning our health expression and taking responsibility for what that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's funny how much things have changed because I was saying to my mom and I are similar-ish in size. And I was like, oh no, my butt wouldn't fit in those jeans. She's like, no, your body's beautiful. And I'm like, heck yeah, my butt's beautiful. Like I'm not saying it's not. And she hears like big butt, like, uh-oh. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, I don't squat for nothing. Like I built this. Yeah. This was on purpose.
Yeah. I love that.
Like things change.
I mean, I feel like our generation is kind of working more towards this, but we work out to look good, but at least for me, and I know for Courtney too, like we work out to age gracefully, to age naturally. And like you were saying, to like look how our body is supposed to look as we go from year to year,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also to be harder to kill. That's a huge reason that I work out is,
especially these days, that's so important.
yeah, it's like there's no reason not to. We have all the data. We have the science is
We have the
settled.
science.
Science is settled on exercise and how beneficial it is for us. Like if the science is settled anywhere, it's there.
We'll agree with that science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. And also like to feel good. I'm sorry, but nothing hits
Oh yeah,
like a good workout.
Oh my gosh, I'm high after a hard leg day. You feel powerful, you have the endorphins, you worked hard towards something, and so
Mhm.
you have that dopamine release, that pleasure release. You like the what's the word I'm looking for? The fulfillment is in the process. It's coming out of that very hard thing and realizing that, damn, I'm strong, or like, damn, I worked hard. I'm proud of myself. That
Mm-hmm.
felt really good. And I am a firm believer that daily exercise is one of those things that reinforces someone to remind themselves, like, I can do hard things. I just lifted 175 pounds deadlifting downstairs 2 hours ago. I can deal with this thing that's popping up in my business, or I can deal with XYZ. Like it might be unconscious, I don't know, but it definitely I think is a factor in how people take on the rest of their day and the rest of their life if they know that they consistently push themselves through challenging things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love that you touched upon foundations earlier. I know I'm circling back to that when you were like, oh, eat whole foods, drink filtered water with minerals. And I'm like, because we had a whole podcast on foundations, and still I think we can talk about it more, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Obviously a lot of people that are listening to this probably need other stuff too, right? Like you might need some parasite cleanses, some other stuff in your health. And I'm not discrediting that because I myself could not do it alone with just foundations. That was not the key to me, but like, where do you start? What is the foundation you are laying for your health?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing every single day consistently? How are you treating your body? And also, how are you talking to her? Your words matter so much. And it's not just the words you say to yourself, right? In your 10-minute meditation and your 10-minute breath work, like those are beautiful and that's great. But if the other, however many hours in the day, you're beating yourself down and saying nothing but negative stuff, like that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. The foundations are low-hanging fruit for people.
Mm-hmm.
There's other fruit on the tree. It might be a little higher up, but like start with the low-hanging fruit. Eating whole organic foods whenever possible. Just even that alone for people can transform someone's health. If
Mm-hmm.
they do nothing else, just eating fewer packaged processed foods and literally changing their palate to crave whole foods, um, that can have a huge impact on someone's health and health expression. But yeah, the foundations, I mean, that's like I said, that's low hanging fruit, and most of them are free. Like sunlight is free. It might not be as prominent in certain parts of the country, but if it's light out, the sun is out, even if you're not seeing it. And so getting sunlight into your eyeballs within the first ideally 10 or 15 minutes of waking up, getting sunlight on your skin, sleep. Sleep doesn't cost us anything. Um, Breathing, learning how to breathe effectively, healthier relationships. These are things that are free, and it's not, but it's like they're so simple sometimes that they get looked over, they get glossed over, unfortunately. Where now I just put something on my story yesterday that was like the FDA is coming out with new guidelines and recommendations for obese children because over 50% of the population is overweight or obese, including children. And so what they're recommending is new guidelines and recommendations around surgery and weight loss drugs for kids as young as 12 or 13 years old. And I put that on my story and I was like, instead of like drugging and cutting kids, why don't we just teach them how to eat, move, be healthy, get sunlight, breathe, think? Like, why don't we start with the most or the least invasive? Not only is it going to help them lose weight, it's going to help prevent other diseases like diabetes and cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's and cancer. Like these are not just weight loss techniques, it's how to live longer and better techniques. Like it blows my mind when you can see a post or a headline like that from a governing body like the FDA or the CDC or whoever it is, and trust that they know anything about health when that's what they're recommending for children. If that's what they're recommending for children to get healthy, you've lost me. You've lost me in any other thing that you recommend for me or my future child or anyone I care about. It's poof, gone. Any reputable or any respect, any confidence that I would have in those governing bodies because you just proved to me that you know nothing about real health.
You know, why not, instead of that, in the schools, why can't we just give them better quality food? Because I've seen the food quality in the schools here and it's trash. And, you know, instead of going straight to surgery, you know, I wish they would just make that effort to just let that be the first thing, you know, like change the food that they're eating in schools, because most of these kids have breakfast at school, they have lunch at school,
yeah,
and then they have snacks, and, you know, and they're not getting a balanced meal when they go home for dinner. So that just drives me crazy.
We're setting them up for failure, and it's not a far stretch to call it child abuse or neglect. They're not learning, you know, granted, I didn't, you know, I grew up like middle to upper class, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't learn about health and nutrition. So I don't want to just blame it on class because it does require an interest. You could be the richest kid in your school and not know anything about real health. It's funny because Chase and I say frequently, like we have a little organic grocery store 2 blocks away that we, you know, usually every day we just go and get the ingredients that we need for whatever we're making for dinner that day. And the days where we're buying just produce, versus sometimes buying like packaged food, like maybe we get like Siete chips or something, or we're getting packaged whatever. It's still probably healthy, but it comes in a package is what I'm saying. The packaged grocery trips are like twice as expensive as us when we just go and get produce. If we're making like a stir fry and we're using rice, we already have our meat and we're using just like produce, carrots, onions, broccoli, cauliflower, whatever. It's like under $15 for the entire thing or less. And then when you get packaged stuff, it's like it'll be like a $50 thing. And it's like we look at each other and we're like, I don't know what people are talking about when they say eating healthy is more expensive. I really, really, really don't think it is. Maybe if you're going to get fast food, that's what they're talking about because you can go like they have the dollar menu. But if you're getting produce, even if it's not organic, if you're getting produce, you're not paying as much as processed, packaged foods. At least in my experience.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just use that as an excuse. You know, they don't want to put in the work to eat healthier. And so it's not that it's expensive. What they are really saying is it's not convenient for me to eat healthy.
Yeah, it does take some time. It takes time to plan meals. It takes time to make the meals. It takes time to go grocery shopping when you're using mostly foods that mold in the fridge. I won't say, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Being an optimally healthy person is like a part-time job. But if you don't have your health, what the fuck do you have? So for me, it's completely worth it. It's completely worth the work that it takes to learn about my body, listen to my intuition, what it's asking for, what it's communicating to me. It's easier to ignore those, sure, and just eat whatever I want and then deal with the consequences later. That's not the easy part. Like when you live that type of lifestyle, you're gonna have hard work or a trade-off somewhere. Like being really healthy is difficult sometimes in our society. Being overweight, having chronic disease is really difficult for different reasons. So you're going to be paying for something somewhere. It's either on the front end paying for organic whole foods, or it's on the back end paying for medical procedures, surgeries, treatment, doctor bill. Like you're going to have it somewhere. It's going to be difficult. Like choose your hard, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And especially because I know a lot of people who are listening to this are people who have dealt with chronic illness, maybe still all that stuff. Like, you know, that when you get to that point, you would do anything to get your health back, right? So why, once you get that back, I mean, that's why I live the same way you do. Like, I would never go back. I'm never going to go back to feeling chronically ill all the time, to the brain fog, to the stomach pains, to all of you name it. And some people, I'm not trying to be morbid, but like they've never gotten to something that bad, so they don't see the value in it. But every decision you make accumulates, regardless, good or bad, right? So like treat your body well, like you like her or him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't need to be perfect. I think that gets taken a little too far as well. I certainly engaged in that behavior where I thought I had to be perfect. And I think that creates a different type of disease, creates a fear around certain foods or behaviors. Again, not too much, not too little. That if that was like on a billboard for the world to see, and that's how we lived our life, like, yeah, you can have ice cream from time to time, not too much, not too little. You're probably going to be fine. Yeah, you can have alcohol here and there, not too much, not too little. I mean, not too little, like that probably doesn't apply to alcohol, but you know what I mean? Like you can live in that middle ground for most of life and you're probably going to be okay. If you want to be for sure optimally healthy, then it probably takes a little bit more on the end of the spectrum that's a little more dialed in, but still, you know, Chase and I will still have pizza every now and then. We use cauliflower crust, but we're still getting that feeling of having pizza, or we'll have a grass-fed burger and homemade French fries. Like you can still enjoy life and live clean, live in a healthy way. It's not like it's boring and awful and like prison.
Yeah.
I think that's such a common misconception that like because we live the way we do, we're miserable. And I'm like, I'm having pizza night tonight. We're making the Simple Mills crust and we're having pizza night and watching a movie. Like we're still living our lives just the way we want and the way that makes us feel the best. Just long term and in the moment. You can have almost everything. Almost.
Yeah.
Right. There's always too much.
Yeah. And it's just about listening to your body. Like if you have the thing that you think is okay, but your body's telling you like, hey, dude, I did not like that. You gotta listen. Like we're used to listening to external forces more so than our own body's communication and intuition. And if it was flipped, we would have a very different world.
Yeah. Well, we have gone over the hour mark and I want to be respectful of your time.
It's my fault because I am a long-winded sucker.
No, that's totally fine. I just want to make sure that, you know, you can get to everything else that you need to do today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed this conversation, and this is stuff that clearly I can talk about all day. But yeah, this is everything that I love in life. It's taking ownership for the expression of not only your health, but your relationships, your mental state, your spirituality, like everything. And I know you didn't ask for this, but if I could leave your listeners with one thing, one um, piece of encouragement or advice, if you want to call it that, is like develop a relationship with your intuition and understand and start to become clear on what your intuition sounds like. The voice of your intuition usually is in the form of a nudge or a whisper until it gets to the point where it's more pronounced and maybe more like a shout or a yell. But that's really, really important. I tend to use the word soul. Uh, my soul always has my highest good in mind. It's never going to lead me astray, but I have to make the point. I have to create the space and the stillness to hear what she is saying to me. And talk about foundations. I think that's the ultimate foundation because you can do all the other stuff, but if you don't have a relationship with your soul or your intuition, how are you going to know when what you're doing isn't working and you need to reroute or need to adjust? So it really starts there, is creating the stillness and the space for your intuition.
I love that. Yeah. I think that gets overshadowed by noise from everyone else and noise from social media way too often because I know that's something that I have had to learn myself in the past few years is to, like you said, bring it back to your soul and kind of just shut everybody else out for a minute.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't listen to people if you trust them or, take advice here and there, but ultimately the final say, the final test is your body, your individuality, and what you need in this moment. And that can change over the course of time. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell everyone where they can find more from you. I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably already follow you, but if they don't, I know they will want to after this episode. And also let them know where they can purchase AHCC and Mushy Love, which we will also leave in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you. I hang out on Instagram quite a bit. I have a lot of education going on there. My handle is at Mimi_the Medicin, and all of our products can be found on themedicin.com. So MEDICIN. There's no E on the end. It's a different type of medicine. So themedicin.com. You can navigate to our podcast, the Medicin Podcast, and all of our products. HCC and Mushy Love have two separate websites. Mushy Love is on getmushylove.com, and then AHCC is on themedicin.com, but we still have Mushy Love in our medicine store. It's just that you can't subscribe. It's just a one-time purchase from the medicine. So, but if you go, you'll find the links. I'll send them to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Medicin Podcast is my podcast, my pride and joy, my baby. And my co-host is my partner, which I guess I never shared. My high school sweetheart, my childhood sweetheart, who I divorced. Life led me back to my intuition, my soul led me back to 3 years after we divorced, and this is part 2 of our relationship. So we are back together and we are happily divorced and in love. And so
Yes.
we talk about all the things, conscious relationships, spirituality, a little bit of woo. We try to keep it grounded, and then holistic health. And yeah, that's I think the majority of what we talk about, but it's our pride and joy. We love it.
Yeah, go check out their podcast, everyone, because their energy is amazing, and I promise you will love the majority of their episodes.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Courtney, do you have any last words?
No, I think that was a great place to leave it off.
Yeah, this episode was so good. I think everyone is going to really love it. So thank you so much for being our second guest, actually. This is only our second guest we've had on the podcast. So
Wow, love it.
thank you.